Hi, my name is Sam Johnson, and I am a voice teacher. Today, I will be reacting to and analyzing Linkin Park performing Given Up in 2011, a vintage year. The year of blackberries, some might remember. If you are interested in signing up for a voice lesson with me or another wonderful teacher, go to vocalease.net. It's a pun. Look it up. Go check out my description. There is a link that will take you there directly. Let's go, Linkin Park.
Waking a sweat again. Another day's been laid to waste. In my disgrace, stuck in my head again. Feels like I'll never leave this place. There's no escape.
Okay, so far Chester is, he's not singing above like the C4, so middle C. It's not high. It's not high at all. A lot of times people in this range will kind of, when they sing quieter like he's doing, they'll go off the voice. So it'll be to more of a ba 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 ba, and then they'll kind of run out of all of their air and not be able to get through. He's singing on the voice, which means that his vocal folds are resisting the air. So there's not just this gap at the posterior side where it is just like letting air come out like crazy. He doesn't have that. However, he's also not pressing into it. It doesn't sound like he's yelling. There's some moments that it gets a little bit noisy, but it sounds pretty healthy to me. And it all sounds motivated by the story he's telling. Like just any still of him, it looks like he knows exactly what he's telling. To me, like that's the sign that really separates a really good singer from like a good vocal technician, is if you're a really good vocal technician, which he obviously was, and you don't have this storytelling ability, why would anyone listen to you? Oh, I guess there are some people who are only interested in that kind of stuff, but to me, that's just boring. Just really, really boring. He's not boring.
I've given up. I'm sick of feeling. Is there nothing you can say? Take this all away. I'm suffocated. Tell me what the fuck is wrong with me.
Okay, so the A, okay, it's a B. The B. It's an A vowel on a B, and it was very, very clean, right? Most of everything else in those phrases, even from the I give, already had sort of that that noisy sound on it. There was one note that was pretty much all noise, and we didn't hear any of that kind of clear sound. But the fact that he was able to go from that into that clear May, to me is a really good sign that what he was doing with the noise, with the scream, with the distortion, whatever you want to call it, is working well and is not like so far away from actual technique that you need to sing the clean stuff that you can't just immediately get into it. Because I find that a lot of times when people are singing like this, the scream kind of sound, if you don't know how to do it in a techniqued way, it hurts. It feels bad. And there's like no way that you could go from singing this hurt, bad, scream, sound into this clean, wonderful sound. I mean, I think that the scream sound is wonderful too. That's maybe not the best word for it. Into just this different quality, the ability to go back and forth with that shows sustainability to me.
I don't know what to take. Thought I was focused, but I'm scared. I'm not prepared. I hyperventilate, looking for help somehow, somewhere, and no one cares.
No! He's putting a little bit of that noise on every few words. It's not just saturating the entire thing, but I do think how he's kind of peppering that in just gives it so much angst. It gives it so much character and style. I hyperventilate, like kind of interesting. I hyperventilate. It just sounds more characteristic of the genre.
I'm my own worst enemy. I've given up.
Okay, so there was a little bit of like a crack in that, but he didn't like stop and say like, oh my gosh, I kind of had a little bit of a crack in that sustain. And how many people noticed that crack? How many people cared about that crack until I pointed it out? How many of you are like, Sam, that was nothing? It doesn't matter, but I do think that a lot of times people, when they're singing, if they notice a little bit of an event like that, it is just this blaring, flashing light in their consciousness. They're like, I messed up and everyone noticed and they think I'm a bad singer. And then they stop and they change things. And then all of the changing and stopping is actually what sabotages the rest of it. Where if you just like say, what just happened, and it's fine and it's a part of this, it's right even, then you can just keep sailing through. Why did he crack through that? I don't know.
I'm sick of feeling. Is there nothing you can say? Take this all away. I'm suffocated. Tell me what the fuck is wrong with me.
So he's a big fan of all of those kind of sounds up at the top of his range. I am as well. That feels great at the top of my range. But he's not going, I give it all. I gave it all. It's up the octave, obviously. But I think a lot of times if you test out different vowel sounds down the octave, you can start figuring out like, oh, yeah, this one's obviously not going to work and this one will. Or you can even hear the difference between the two a little bit better than you might be able to when you also have the pressure of singing a high note, because I think most people have this idea that high notes are hard notes. And so as soon as we start approaching those notes, like we hit the note. It's not like we sing it. We hit those notes. And that implies, I think, this difficulty, which in his voice, is it more difficult? Honestly, I probably not. Like with a lot of voices like his who just excel so well in this upper range, a lot of people find that that's the easy stuff. But anyway, for most of us mortals, when we're trying to figure this kind of stuff out, it can be easier to find these differences if you take out the pressure of, and I have to sing it up on this high note that's hard for me. Whereas like most of the problems with those high notes are just vowel shaping. So if you can figure out the vowel shaping in some lower pressure situation, it can really help you then take that same shaping and just change the variable of pitch. Jeez. Words are really hard when you see people sing that well sometimes. Chester Bennington, good singer. What did he do? Okay, so most of that was in, I believe, a fry scream, which is really similar to just a vocal fry sound, like a but when I do that sound, and it's that, what's that from? The Grudge or The Ring, you know? One of those movies, one of those two that scared me a lot in junior high. If you start by finding that sound, it's actually really similar to that level of pressure. And he looks super, super intense. And obviously there's a little bit more pressure and emotion and everything than what I'm doing with But what takes that and turns it into the sounds that he was making is stretching the vocal folds out. So if the vocal folds are really long and you do that same sort of vocal fry sound, it just starts sounding noisy. And then he gets that noise sent through his vocal tract, which is wonderful at singing clean stuff. And in the same way that that wonderful vocal tract filters all of the sound from a clean source at the vocal folds, it filters that noisy source and turns it into this incredible sound. Also, they've got a wonderful sound person who is probably taking that sound and helping it sound as wonderful as it does. Anyway, I'm going to try to demonstrate kind of what that sounds like. I'm not good at this. I have not put all of the time into it that I would need to be good at this. And if you're interested in learning more of this kind of stuff, I highly recommend checking out any of Melissa Cross's material. On YouTube, there's Mary Z Voice Hacks is really quite good. There are a lot of people who are better at this than I am, and I totally admit that. But I do still think that figuring out how to do this little bit is not the hardest thing ever. So if you do kind of a high pitch meow, that thins out your vocal folds. And this is stolen directly from Melissa Cross, but it's a meow, meow. And when you do that, your vocal folds are really, really thin. And then if you let it kind of drop into that vocal fry place, meow, meow, with me. It's something similar to that, which doesn't feel like anything to me. And he's obviously like going back and forth between words, which is the hard part. He's awesome at what he's doing is all I'm showing. Like what I just did took me a good 10 years to figure out how to do at all without hurting myself. And as I was learning that, there were some times that it would hurt when I did it. And if you're working on this kind of stuff, be so conservative. If anything starts hurting, just stop, which is a good rule just in general with learning how to sing or learning how to use your voice at all. But especially with this kind of stuff, like if you notice anything weird, take a break. Okay, so when he does that sound, the ear kind of one, I think it's still vocal fry. I think it's still fry scream, but he's lowering his larynx and he's sticking his lips out and making this really long tube, and that tube makes it sound lower. So what I've heard from people who sing this kind of stuff frequently is you gotta just let the vowel do all of the work for pitching everything. And so you'll see when people go to the really high ones, their mouth will start opening a lot. And when they go to these lower sounds, they go more like this. That's not on accident. It's not just to look cool. It's because by doing that, it changes the acoustics of your mouth and of your throat and starts boosting higher or lower frequencies, which make it sound higher or lower. I'd say that a lot of times, actually, when Chester was singing more normal stuff, he has a pretty high larynx. And I do think that maybe some of the little, that just like cracks that are not maybe as desired, again, they don't matter. I think that maybe those were just because of that slightly higher larynx. So if I had the opportunity to work with a singer of his caliber that was singing in this way, I would just try experimenting with that and see if you could get the same sort of sounds that you want with a slightly lower larynx position. If you can't get the sounds that you want, you can still sing with a higher larynx. Obviously, it's harder. It's harder. And for most of us mortals who have not been touring for decades and practicing this stuff for your entire life and just also are this ray of talent that, everyone's different and some people just tend to be better at singing than other people. I think that, everyone can learn how to sing well, but then there's Chester.
Yeah!
Okay, then with his speech right there, the yeah! I heard his larynx drop again. Ow! Ow! Yeah! That tonal shift. The brightness is kind of desired, right? I mean, I'm sure that he could get that darker sound with his singing as well. I bet that he does know how to let his larynx drop a little bit. I think most people who are singing along with Linkin Park do not know how to make that distinction. And in chasing sounding exactly like Chester, usually we'll start pulling chest voice up by opening our mouth a little too much without letting our vocal folds thin out. That bigger mouth definitely encourages pulling this heavier mechanism up really high rather than letting your chords thin a little bit more. And a lot of people's larynxes will start rising, which also encourages more of that yelly sound versus what he's doing, which to me is not yelling. It's got a lot of things in common with yelling, but it's not yelling. It's just more refined. And it doesn't have the weight that I associate with a yell, even if there's a lot of crossover with the vowel. He was a wonderful talent. He's one of the guys that got me into loving singing and loving listening to people sing and loving this style of music. And we were really lucky to have Chester Bennington influence us. And I'm really lucky to be able to watch him now and hope that some of you also watch him and take some sort of value away from this, go listen to some Linkin Park. Thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe, leave a comment below. Go to my website, vocalease.net, and sign up for a lesson with me. And watch my other videos, maybe. Thank you.